Well, welcome to our cash monthly update meeting. I'd like to welcome everyone, first-time attendees and new members. Do we have anyone here who wants to stand up? No? Okay. We are also live streaming today for this meeting, so thank you to those that are following along online. Hope you can hear us okay, and we'll get started with the meeting. Going to talk about the bond briefly, and I just want to tell you that I had an interesting experience yesterday speaking to someone who is in regular attendance at our cash events and things, fairly in the know with what we do outside private sector organization, and he was not totally confident or aware that we had qualified for November. And so let me just tell you, I know some of you are a little tired of me making you clap, Lynn Gruber, when I say that we have qualified, but that to me stresses the point that all of us need to communicate and continue to be really rote about this, that we have qualified, we are on the ballot, and continue to have conversations with folks about that, because there is still surprisingly a lack of understanding about that. So we can all be good stewards, good messengers with that message, and I don't think we can say it enough, apparently. So that drives that home to me. I hope that you share that with folks and continue to keep that conversation going, because it's ultimately very important. On the issue of the bond. Okay, we're qualified. What are we going to do, Lynn? I'm going to make her clap by herself. We are qualified. We're the only people in our pack who can pull ourselves off the ballot, and we have no intention of doing so. You all know the breakdown of the bond, the $3 billion for new construction, modernization, career tech. It's very well in our communities, an important program, and charter schools as well. Community colleges get a portion of the bond as well. So what's new is, and I think most of you saw this, but the Public Policy Institute of California released a poll this last Wednesday that showed most Californians favor an extension of Prop 30 tax increase and our state school bond. So there's been a lot of conversation about, will we compete with each other? Will one of us drag the other one down? How does that all look to the voting community? And we pull together quite well. Now, Prop 30 tax extension has not qualified yet. The idea is that we think they're going to. But also to note that 63% of likely voters said they would vote yes on a state bond measure. Very good information. In addition, 84% of public school parents support the measure. So in everything that we do, we're heavy and hot on the campaign trail, and that raising money is very important. But coalition building and getting that information out to our communities about what this bond will do for local school districts and their local bond efforts is equally as important. Having those conversations so people understand, well, what does a state bond really do? Why do we need that when our local school districts are going out for their bond measures? I get asked that quite frequently. I think we in this industry can communicate that at a level that helps everybody have an understanding, and that information spreads. So very important for all of us to do that. Of course, we are continuing the coalition building. That's happening on a regular basis. You should be getting those updates. We've got the cash issues schoolbond.com website for people to go on and contribute. We're also continuing to get the school board resolutions in. So I know private sector folks, if you're working with some districts who you don't see on the list of school board resolutions, try to talk to them, see what's happening. We've heard that a few people are holding back until they get out in front of their local bond and commit to that. They don't want to proceed that effort with their boards, and so we'll be seeing a lot more resolutions, we believe, in June and July. But we do have a substantial list there, which I think is very heartening. Very important for us to have that. It's political as well as just having everybody have skin in the game, right? As you all know, there is a sample resolution. A lot of districts want to know, okay, well, how do we word it? That's available on the Cash Issues website, and additional information there. If they want to see, well, who else has done it? That's a common question that I get. So 117 school districts have endorsed. That's great. And what's really fascinating, this is why, it's information, it's good information, but it kind of already shows us the bond might be too small, right? As many of us suspected. $22 billion identified need, and based upon what they're going out with their local bond measures. So, all I can say is holy cow, right? Hang on. So endorsements, individual support of our associate members, individuals, really important. If you haven't done so, it's pretty painless. Go on the website, find the forms, and I think Aline even has some at the back of the room. So please do that. Again, it shows that we all have skin in the game. So since our last monthly update, we've obtained some pretty important endorsements. And I'll just highlight a couple of those for you. There are asterisks on this. But Community College League of California, Los Angeles County Democratic Party, CASBO this week. Big for us. And County Soups, I understand, as well. Statewide leaders, Jean Fuller. A lot of you know Jean, former allocation board member. She's from Middle Earth. She's a Middle Earth gal, and she's Senate Republican leader, and that's important. So we're getting this bipartisan support. It's, nothing's going to stop us on them. Got more list here. Tom Berryhill, Ling Ling Chang, Rocky Chavez. He spoke at our annual conference. Great guy. David Hadley, Tom Lackey, Sharon Runner, Andy Vidak, and Donald Wagner. All right, so campaigning and fundraising going hand in hand, and we've been quite successful, and this is I'm sure many of you know about it. We're going out regionally to targeted areas with many of our membership to do these regional fundraising events. There's lists in your packet of information, but upcoming events are April 29th. That's immediately following a workshop in Ontario. May 11th, Pasadena. May 20th, following the spring symposium, which I'll talk about a little bit later. And May 24th, following a workshop in Sacramento. So these fundraisers have been really key beyond, just as I mentioned earlier, about raising money. For me, it's been about educating folks, maybe even some of our private sector folks who aren't cash members per se, don't understand how the state school bond works to supplement local school bond dollars and how the whole system works. It's been really important to educate that community, and that's going to be our voting public, right? They're going to talk to other people about friends and neighbors about why this is important. So I think that these events, if you haven't attended one, I encourage you to do it. If you think of an area where you've not seen a lot going on in terms of fundraising, let cash staff know, because we're continuing to do those, and we will, throughout the spring and early summer, I would imagine. But there's quite a list now. Really heavy in Southern California. Good job, you guys. Central Valley is doing some work as well, and I know Northern California is, but we'd like to see more. So talk to us, let us know if there's something you think that you could participate in. And they vary in terms of attendance. That doesn't matter. You still can communicate the need for this bond. So size of the group is really not a big concern. You can have a big event and get large contributions, that's great, but getting the information out is just as important. So I want to thank you. I'm so confident. I sleep very well at night, really well. I have no anxiousness about this, and it's not a sort of arrogance, I don't think. I just see the positive side of what we're doing, and I don't see how we can fail. But we do need your support. The key factor here is that it polls well with voters when they know about it. When they know about it. And so we need to continue the campaign to make this promise a reality. And we don't want to get all the way, just almost to the finish line, right? And not tip over to the success of having this bond. It's too important to all the work that we do. So thank you for everyone who's been putting in such a huge effort. Here's our Triple Diamond folks. You know, great people. They stepped up to the plate early with substantial contributions, and we thank each and every one of them. All right, so any questions about campaign and fundraising? No? Everybody got it? Okay. I'd like to talk just briefly about this next event coming May 19th and 20th in San Diego. This is something I'm very passionate about. There's a flyer, a beautiful flyer actually, at the back of the room about this symposium. Planning and Funding Facilities of the Future. It's a symposium. It's a 2-day. Creating the educational infrastructure that accelerates learning. I believe all of us that work for school districts and county offices of education understand that we've done design of school facilities in a very traditional way. You know, I think Dr. Duffy mentioned it this morning that we are creatures of habit. We are redundant in what we know has worked, and we've been doing that for quite some time. That there's not a lot of difference sometimes between the facilities we build today and the ones of early 1800s. And we have a different population of students that we're trying to educate today. They learn very differently. All of us with children know that, right? I mean, if something goes wrong with your cell phone or computer, who do you ask? The 12-year-old in the room, right? They know that's how they get their information, that's how they want to learn. So this isn't just about technology, although that's integrated into this discussion. It's about how do we create these educational environments that respond to individual learning styles, the student populations that we have today. How do we enhance education outcomes with how we design the facilities? We know ultimately the teaching, the teachers, the educational community are the biggest part of that equation, and we want them there with us. But a portion of that equation is definitely the facilities and the environments in which these children are taught and in which they learn. This event will have a tour of a school in Poway, Design 39. We'll have a series of speakers and discussions about 21st century learning, next generation learning. What we want to do is encourage school district people and others to encourage the educational community, the instructional community to attend with their facilities team. We've even developed a group discount for 5, right, Greg? So, we're encouraging folks to do that. My county office, bringing a couple of my special education instructional community with me to look at these kinds of concepts, and there's good information I think for everyone. One of the things that's exceedingly important is to check the research and the data, right? I hate to use the word legitimize, but there is a substantial body of research out there, of which San Diego State University houses and retains, and they will be there to talk about that body of research that links facilities, lack of, or benefit of facilities and how it impacts outcomes. So I think this is a huge event for us. I encourage you to get people to attend, and I think it's some of the good work that we do at CASH, along with some of the other Maintenance Management Academy and other things that are really important. Oh, didn't flip the side. So Design 39 at Poway, really, really great school. The original principal who did all the hiring for the school and really implemented the strategies instructionally for what they're doing there has retired, but she's coming back to do the tour for us, and so I think it's going to be an exceptional opportunity for people to learn from what they've done, to have some takeaways in terms of what they think they can do. We have a CASH monthly workshop, school district options for competitive selection, Tuesday, May 24th in Sacramento. This is going to focus on various aspects of competitive selection. So school districts can have the most recent information to perfect their school facility projects. The workshop will feature a presentation on what services can be competitively selected and the types of competitive selection. In addition, the workshop will include presentations on Department of Industrial Relations, all that fun stuff, certified payroll, approved contractor list, apprenticeship training pipeline, financing and selecting consultants for your local school bond, procurement law, CMAS, piggyback, other things, and lastly, project insurance, wraparound, and SOAP indemnification. So good timing on this. School facility people working on projects, thinking about initiating a school facility project. This is a workshop I think that we should need to encourage all of those folks to attend. We've all seen what's happened in the last few years with lack of school facility funding. We've lost some institutional knowledge in our field. We have some new people coming up. We need to encourage them to continue to engage with us in this organization to get that institutional knowledge that's available to them to do better projects. So. And then CASH Maintenance Network has just completed 2 successful workshops at Los Angeles County Office of Ed and Clovis Unified School District. Thank you to both facilities for providing excellent space. If you're interested in hosting a Maintenance Network workshop, please contact Kyle Tanaka in the CASH office. He's doing really good work with that. It's an important part of our membership group, and I was joking with Joe Dixon this morning. I said, man, those maintenance guys are going to overtake us facilities people, and that's a little scary, but I welcome them. It's a really good thing. All right, so with that, I'd like to welcome up to the podium. Did he make it? Chet? Oh, there he is. We're going to have an update from the Department of State Architect, our state architect, who we love, right? Chet Woodham, welcome.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Well, good morning, or still morning. Still morning. Good morning, everybody. It's been a while since I've had a chance to meet with you, and I'm hoping that I can get some feedback from you on certain items because we need some help in a number of different areas. I want to start by saying that we are well underway with electronic back check. We've actually got a number of projects that have gone through. Actually, Leonakis did one yesterday, or etc. It seems to be going well. They actually did the DGS Department of General Services Public Affairs Department came in with cameras to take pictures because they want to publicize it. So I think that slowed it down a little bit. But in general, it's working reasonably well. We hope that we can get to a full electronic plan review sometime in September, the availability for it. It's going to take some time, both from a standpoint of training our staff I'm convinced that the architects and the engineers are far ahead of us, so that our staff are going to need some help in this process. And we also have some equipment issues that are an issue because we have to bring in new equipment, larger screens, etc. It's requiring some construction, minor construction changes in order to get it all set up. So that's going to hold us back. Speaking of spaces, we have just been notified that we are going to be moving out of the Los Angeles, the Metropolitan Water District building. We've lost our space there. They're going to go through a major seismic renovation, and both OSHPAD and ourselves are being booted out. We've got a year to find another place, which is really difficult. And it's going to have an impact on those people that are working out of the LA office. I'm talking about our clients, districts, and as well as architects and engineers and everybody else involved. And that's going to be a little bit of a problem, especially it's a double problem because we were about to do a renovation of the office, which would include allowing for larger screens, being able to do the electronic back check. So we're not sure what we're doing. And this just happened literally yesterday or the day before. So we're quite concerned about that. We are also going through a renovation at the Sacramento headquarters and regional office, which should not be a problem for you folks, but boy, it's going to be a pain for us. And we're going to learn how bad it is to live with construction because they're going to do this. We're not picking up and moving. They're doing it while we're occupying the space. I've done this before in private practice, and I used to love to watch my colleagues realize that our clients have to go through this, and it's really painful, very, very painful.
Get a DSA approval first.
Yeah.
That's our problem. It's being held up. It's still in the bin. Speaking of bin, we do have that surge of summer projects. We're up to about 8 weeks right now, and we're pushing hard trying to get that down. We've moved projects all across the state. Interesting, Oakland, which is normally pretty low in terms of the amount of projects, has been getting a huge amount of projects, large ones as well as small ones. So we've been kind of moving them all around, and we're hoping to make sure that, or not hoping, we're going to make sure that that has no negative impact on our clients. We're working on ways to make that happen. It's also complicated in that we also found that in some cases our over-the-counter project reviews we're reaching 8 and 9 weeks, and we're saying, well, why would I go over the counter if I can just put it in the bin? It'll be faster. So we've pulled people off to try to handle that. That's causing part of our bin time. We think we'll be under control in about a month or so. A lot of it depends upon the projects that are coming in, and there's a huge amount of projects that are coming in. This is as of April 22nd. In the last month, we got $625 million worth of projects that came in. Yay, isn't that terrific for schools? Isn't that great for everybody, including DSA? But it's a painful time because a lot of those are really small projects, and we're trying to figure out how to get it done. We've gone into overtime on our staff. We have looked at going out on contract to outsiders. It's my old experience was I didn't like that. I didn't like going out to other architects or to engineers. I'd like some feedback from you folks. I mean, how does that impact you when we go out and we contract? Are you happy with that? Does it work well, or is it a problem because we get different kinds of reviews? Yeah, Laura.
It's not terrible. I think what happens sometimes though is because of the concern with the outside plan checker, then the internal folks want everything then 2 weeks before their back check, so they can, and we've had the experience a couple of times where they've almost rechecked the project when it got back into your office because they wanted, and I understand the quality control part of that, but it means that we're plan checking and back checking twice. Right. And I think that's been the problem. I don't really think we have much of a problem with the outside plan checkers' comments, as long as in Sacramento, if it's Dan or somebody at the regional level can be called in during back check to override something that might be too much.
Well, and the experience that I had was we would wind up, especially our engineering, we'd go out to an outside engineer, and then the engineer would say, why are you designing this building this way? And we'd have to go through the fight. It's not your business.
Yeah.
Your business is to check it. You're not, I know you have a different approach to designing buildings. So bottom line is we've gone into overtime for a number of the offices. We've moved work around. If you can tell us, and this is the important part, if you can tell us which projects truly have the summer deadline, we're going to, like we've been doing for the last number of years, we're going to expedite them. But you also need to tell us, hey, this one, if it takes an extra week or two, we're not going to start construction. Don't worry about it, so that we can push them to the side temporarily, obviously not on a permanent basis. That's would really be helpful. Other than that, excuse me, we're working on starting the new, what's it called, the intermediate code cycle, which is due for us. We have to turn in any changes in December. So we are working on that right now. We don't foresee any major issues. We're going to use it primarily to do cleanup, finding things in the code that are awkward and try to make them a little bit better. The access side has a number of cleanup items, as well as a lot of pressure from the accessibility community to do certain things, and we're working on that as best we can. There is a proposal that was withdrawn from the last cycle, which I think would immediately affect schools, and that was we wanted to do something to alleviate the accessibility upgrades required for a seismic strengthening of a building. And we proposed at that particular time that for seismic projects, just strictly seismic strengthening, that we use the federal requirement of 20% as opposed to the full amount that California has right now. That got pulled, and is going to go into a study again, and I'm going to be asking some folks from CASH to sit in on some task forces to look at that, along with what other elements should be changed. We really are going to need your help there. We've got, I got a report yesterday that 68% of my staff is over 55. Big impact. I reached that a lot of years ago, so I don't even care. But the idea of trying to build the next generation is very, very difficult. And especially at a time when the architects, are busy. They've got a lot of work. They're doing good stuff. So we do have some chores ahead of us. But that means that there's going to be some big turnover. And we were at least in DGS, our group was the largest, 68. Everybody was below us. But there were some other 57, 55. What we're seeing is an aging of and what we're going to lose is some of that institutional knowledge, and at the same time we're limited by budget. I can't do too many overlaps of people to bring them in. As an example, Dennis Corellis, who is our accessibility expert, principal architect. Dennis is going to be leaving in at the end of July, and we're going to see some shakeups there. So we'll struggle through it. We're going to ask for your help on this process. And really, what I'd like to get from you, if you have it, are any issues that we're not addressing right now. We'll try to hit them. Yes, Laura?
I just have a quick thing, because I think your workload is also going to impact certification of legacy projects. And it might be good to have either a point person or a higher level person that, I don't want to say is the appeal person, but when the projects are holding up projects that do need to go out to construction. I have a little timeline memo for you on one project, but I think that somebody has to be the voice of reason on some of the legacy projects when they're holding up new construction, especially if you have 95 or above percent, or fixes.
the regional manager would normally be that person. Is that not happening, or is it just?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a problem, a bottleneck, so we can talk offline, but
Okay.
I think that if you're gonna get busier, the certification is gonna become a bottleneck, just
Well,
like the bid time.
So,
It's-
I'm sorry, could you kind of just repeat a little bit of that, because they're for the taping?
I'm sorry, yeah. The question is that since we are tending to get busy, that seems to be a bottleneck in terms of the certification process, and Lornos was asking for an expert, somebody there that could kind of unclog the bottleneck and get things done, especially when they're very, very close to certification and they're stopping a project going forward. And we certainly do not want to stop any projects going forward. So we're there. Certification's an interesting thing happening. I've got as part of our strategic plan for DGS, it's to clean up what we're calling the transition projects. Those are the projects that started that are between January 1st, 2011 and May 31st of 2013. The legacy projects are the ones before that, and we went into the inspection card, which we're running at about 92% certification on that. That's really just a terrific thing, and it's a moving target. I believe that we can get up to 95%, but we're happy at 91. Well, excuse me, the transition projects, and there were 1,300 of them when we set this goal, we want to try to clean them up. We need some help because those are the ones that people are still around. And I'm just astounded as to why we can't seem to get those 1,300 cleaned up. And they're projects that were done or should have been done in that period. Any thoughts as to why we're having a problem? And it's across the board. I don't want to lay it on one particular person, but it seems like we're almost doing better with legacy projects than we are with the projects where the architect's still there, et cetera. So if you have any thoughts about that, help me, because we're trying to figure that one out, and I've got a lot of pressure to get that one done. And we're getting a few of them done. I mean, we got 250 of them, 230, something like that, done in the last couple months. But it's really a hard push. I'd like to get to the place that we get this stuff down to the bare bones, and it's looking harder and harder, if you want the truth. Any other comments or any other questions? Well, that's good in a certain respect. I hope that we're not causing any problems, and I hope that we're serving you well. We do want to continue to increase the quality of our client service. So I'm going to end with what I always say. Yeah, I'm sorry. There's a man back there that. I'm sorry. Your name again?
I'm just anonymous today.
Wait a second. You left yourself open, because I could turn around and say a lot of people think you're anonymous all the time. But I won't say that, Tom.
Could you talk about the delegation of authority issue and your DSA's
Good. Thank you. Good.
new determination as to what architects and modular builders must do with those kinds of
Right.
projects?
Okay. For a long time, I'm not quite sure it started, but the design professional in charge of a project, if they were using portables or relocatables, the architect that was doing the planning actually had to take the legal responsibility for the construction of those modular units. And those modular units were designed by generally an engineer who was hired directly by the manufacturer. So, and maybe it's a personal thing because I resented the hell out of it every time I had to sign this, but I finally have got it down to the point now where essentially what happens is the design professional that did the work for the manufacturer is responsible for oversight and for signing off on those projects. And we changed the Form 1, and I don't have it in front of me, I'm sorry, to really lay it out, but we essentially changed the Form 1 so that the engineer is responsible for it. They do have the ability to delegate that authority to somebody. They can delegate it to the architect, if the architect is willing to take on that delegation, or the engineer, or to an engineer. They have the responsibility for signing off essentially the Form 6, what it would be at the end of the job. It's a little more complicated than that in terms of the format, but that's essentially the essence of it. And it goes into effect June 1, I believe is the date that we set. Tom, am I correct about that?
It went into effect last week.
I thought, okay, I might be mixing. Okay, went in last week. Did I cover it for you?
You did. I just think it's important for there's a lot of details here that I think will come out as this process. But two things. One is that if a manufacturer is building the same building over and over again, so let's say it's a regular 960, the expectation that the engineer of record on the sign-off does not necessarily have to watch every building being built.
Correct.
If there are 10 buildings being built, they see one, or someone that they delegate to see it, then that's fine.
Well, let me just correct that. They're taking responsibility for it. If they're comfortable checking out 1 out of 10, they check 1 out of 10. It's no different than the architect on a stick-built building. If they're comfortable with the inspector and they're comfortable with the contractor, that doesn't mean they have to stand there for every single stick or every single piece of rebar that's going into the ground. If they're uncomfortable with it, then they're going to have to stand there with whoever's doing the inspections. They're going to have to spend more time out on the job. But that's strictly a professional judgment on their part, which it should be. That's their responsibility. Sorry, Tom.
And we're essentially saying, I'm saying the same thing, but it is, that was a question, that was an important question, because one issue that continued to emerge in the discussion was that there has to be not only a recognition of this building being placed on a school site and observance of that the observation had to take place in plant as well. That, as you just explained, it was the belief that the same building was being built to those specifications and under the controls within the factory of the Monty Builders. So that, and you've explained that. The other is that although BSA has been doing a great job of trying to simplify the process of closeouts and approvals and the like, and our entreaty to BSA in 2008 was, well, simplification probably means fewer forms. Now we actually have longer forms. It may be the same form, but it has additional pages to it. And I think people just need to be, and that's not a complaint, that it's just a recognition of what's going on, because you have multiple signatories now. If an architect is delegating authority, then that delegation is something that has to be recognized. If it's an engineer of an in-plant project that goes onto the site, you're going to have the architect, you're going to have that engineer, and you're going to have multiple signatures. So more pages are going to be required.
And that, I came on board saying I want to eliminate forms, and I've been convinced, and I think rightfully so, that those forms, if we're going to try to pull this into a data bank, if we're going to try to automate, we need to get people to put the information in correctly, and we're in the process of trying to have drop-down menus so that you can't make the misnaming constantly. Schools are named differently, somebody signs it off differently, so the forms are getting thicker. But I believe they're going to be easier, because once we get the form system where it's almost like like an airport, or whenever you're making something online, you can't make a mistake. This is the only thing you can put in. It's either X, Y, or Z. You can't put in L or R. And the bottom line of that is that we wind up with more forms, but as we're moving towards an automated system, and we are working on it, there's a meeting going today, trying to get eTracker over to iTracker, all of this stuff should blend in and be much easier for everybody. But I hate it. I just hate all the forms, but not much I can do about it. Thank you for bringing that one up, Tom. That's an important one. Anything else? Well, again, I tend to end this thing always with the same question. I can't fix it if I don't know it's broke. There are still some reticence by some people to let us know when there's an issue. I urge you to let us know. We're trying really hard. I think we've got 4 really good regional managers trying really hard to do the job for you. Dessa Rooney in Oakland, I think, has done a terrific job. She's stuck with only one engineer right now, one supervising engineer. We're going to go out for a second one. We've actually gone out for it. That makes it really tight. But other than that, that office is working pretty well. Any other questions? Jenny, I'll give it back to you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Chet. As always, we appreciate your nimbleness to work with us, especially on those summer projects. So I really appreciate that. So now we'll hear from California Department of Education, Mike O'Neill. I failed to mention that the Spring Symposium, California Department of Education is going to do some presentation on generation learning. So welcome, Mike.
Thank you. Good morning. It's still morning, right? I'm going to go over just about half a dozen items, not in any particular order of importance. The first one is that the 2016 STEM Symposium is scheduled for October 9th through the 11th at the Anaheim Convention Center, and this is an annual symposium co-hosted by CDE and the Californians Dedicated to Education Foundation. CDE is seeking presenters at this symposium to share projects, new, modernized, or modified STEM facilities, and including but not limited to, say, technology integration or infrastructure upgrades or partnerships, those types of things. If you want to submit a proposal for a presentation there, do so no later than May 20th and contact Molly Stitt in our office for further information. Second item is the Active Transportation Program, or ATP cycle guidelines were approved last week by the California Transportation Commission. This cycle has about $240 million that they can award through this funding application, and the window to file it, including school districts can file, is open from April 15th through June 15th. You can log on to the ATP webpage, or there's a link on the CDE webpage. And there just happens to be a webinar today, a Transportation Commission webinar, for which you can download their PowerPoint about the program if you're interested. And these can be projects by LEAs, can include physical projects, infrastructure projects like improvements for safe routes to schools or bicycle facilities, or they can be program related, like walkability audits or assessments and development of a bike safety program, those types of things. Third item, if you're conducting some renovations on your campuses, be aware that the federal EPA has a guide for healthier school renovations, and they have some good advice on there on how to avoid environmental health hazards and minimize exposures to various materials. So you can help prepare for and undergo these renovations. So those are they're linked on our webpage, or you can look on the federal EPA guide for healthier school renovations. A reminder that CDE usually sees an increase in plan reviews in the fall, and that can be for a variety of reasons. Districts are trying to update, they're going to lose some eligibility, they're updating their eligibility, or maybe they're trying to beat some new Title 24 requirements that are going to go into effect, those types of things. So give us some time in advance of those projects. Don't submit them and give us a one-day turnaround time on those plan review requests, please. The Great California Shakeout is coming. Again, this is an annual drill. It's held this year on October 20th, and your particular participation can be on a different day if you want, but the general participation date is October 20th, and it's designed to provide a sense of urgency about earthquakes and to encourage schools and communities to get prepared for and to practice what to do, and exiting plans and other things. And if you would like to participate in the Great Shakeout, then you can link onto the shakeout.org/California or link through the CDE webpage. CDE, or in particular the School Facilities and Transportation Services Division, was invited to and did present at the Strategic Growth Council meeting on April 11th. And the topic of that was the role of CDE in school facility siting and planning. And CDE continues to work in a collaborative nature with the Strategic Growth Council and the Office of Planning and Research, for that matter, their staffs, to help inform CD activities in relation to state planning priorities geared towards sustainable activities in communities, and how those priorities might be promoted in school facility siting and planning activities, including potential Title V regulation updates and other opportunities for collaboration between state agencies. And the last item is that was noted was on Earth Day, April 22nd last week. The California nominees to the U.S. Department of Education's National Award Program for the Green Ribbon Awards were recognized, and those winners included 3 school districts. It was LA Unified, Manhattan Beach Unified, San Francisco Unified, an individual school. It was the Bay Farm School in Alameda, and a private school, the Bishop O'Dowd High School in Oakland. And so those received that national award. And nationwide, there were about 47 schools and 15 districts from 27 states that were being honored for their innovative efforts to reduce environmental impact and reduce costs and improve health and wellness and ensure effective sustainability or environmental education. The other California applicants in the program also received various levels of state recognition. If you're interested in those, you can log on to our webpage, and there's some activities as awards will be presented throughout California, and our state superintendent will usually be attending those. That about sums up CD update. I'll answer any questions. Seeing none, the item passes.
Thank you, Michael. All right. So now we'll hear from Rebecca Cleary and Ian Padilla regarding our significant legislation. Welcome, guys.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. So we're in that kind of really fun time of year for those of us who find this to be exhilarating. That would be me and Ian, and maybe not the rest of you. But we just made it through our first major deadline in the legislative process. That was April 22nd, and all bills that have a potential state fiscal impact had to make it out of their policy committee hearing. And so what that means is that on a lot of these bills where we had maybe a little bit of information or maybe a little insight into what the author was thinking, we now know more. They've started to really vet these policy proposals. And I wanted to talk to you today about 2 bills that we didn't talk about last time because they're in that category of either didn't exist or there wasn't a lot of information. The first one is AB 2429 Thurmond. This is a bill that would deal with the limits on bonding capacity that were established by Proposition 39 and in statute. And the bill would do one very simple thing. It would increase those limits for elementary school and high school districts from 1.25 to 2% of your taxable property. And then for unified districts and community college districts, that increase would go from 2.5 to 4%. And this is something that can already be done with a waiver to the State Board of Education, though we know that process isn't perfect. It doesn't exactly provide for really easy planning at the local level. This is something that CASH has historically supported. We appreciate having access to resources. But given the political complexities that surround everything that we're doing right now with the bond, we're kind of hanging back on this bill right now and watching what develops and what unfolds. And, you know, we would believe that we need both the state bond and increased access to local resources, both of those things together to really meet the needs in your community. But we're concerned about creating a possible distraction in putting our hat in the ring on this and then creating a potential argument, hey, look, you've got more access to local resources. You maybe don't need the state bond as much. So we're watching this play out. It has moved successfully through 2 policy committees and will next be heard by the full assembly. And the next time that we meet, we'll probably be able to report to you on potential further progress on this bill. It is opposed by Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association and the county treasurers and tax collectors. So there are some folks who don't necessarily like this policy approach. And keep in mind that this is one of the things that the governor has suggested doing. So the other bill that I want to mention is on one of our favorite topics of late, that's skilled workforce and how you ensure that you're providing that skilled workforce per new requirements that were established over the last year or so for a couple of different types of projects, lease-back, design-build, and best value projects. So this bill is SB 693 Hueso, and it was a gut and amend, so it's a new proposal and a new bill, and Cash has taken a support position on this bill. It's bringing consistency to the statute for those 3 different types of projects and will help folks actually implement those new requirements. I know there's been a lot of questions about how to actually achieve some of the things that were set out in statute and some confusion about the new statutory requirements. So really quickly, some of the things that this bill does is it's providing a consistent implementation schedule for those percentages on your skilled journey persons and the percentage that have to be graduates of an approved apprenticeship program. It now pushes out all of those to January 1, 2020 to reach that 60% mark, that highest mark. So in effect, what this is doing is pushing out the implementation for lease-back projects by 1 year from 2019 to 2020, that full implementation. Another thing it's doing is it's giving some guidance and clarifying what happens if your contractor or your bidder fails to provide the required monthly report or to demonstrate compliance with their skilled workforce requirements. And so now you have specificity that you'd withhold further payments until compliance is achieved or until the report is provided. So there's a little more clarity there on what to do. And there's a little bit of additional guidance on how to calculate your percentage requirements for your apprenticeship graduation. And there's also a statement that these requirements do not apply if your journey person is working for less than 10 hours per month on a contractor project. So hopefully this will help. I know that this is kind of the hand that we've been dealt. And in order to get there and do what we need to do on our projects, this will hopefully provide a little more clarity and help with that. So really quickly, just 2 other bills that I want to give you a quick update on, and then I'll toss it over to Ian. And one of them is 2316 O'Donnell. That's the bill that I talked to you very briefly about last month on lease-back. This is a bill where the author is trying to establish a competitive selection process for lease-back. Cash is continuing to participate in the stakeholder conversation taking place on this issue. The policy proposal is still being developed, so there's nothing, if you go and look at this bill today, there's really nothing there to tell you about what that competitive selection process will look like. This is a bill that actually doesn't have its first policy committee hearing until next week. So we're continuing to participate in those conversations and we'll keep you updated. The last one that I want to mention is SB 885 WOLC, and this is the bill on indemnity that I talked about last month. And at issue here is who pays first dollar of defense for claims that are pertaining to the design professional's work. So I know that the way that Cash is approaching this bill is let's preserve the agreement that we all made in 2010 on this issue. We know that our organization is comprised of school districts, architects, engineers, and others. We all came to the table and made an agreement on this issue in 2010, and we just want to preserve that and not reopen it. This bill has its first policy committee hearing next week, and we'll see what happens. Any questions on any of those? Thanks.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'll be relatively brief as well. Just wanted to remind you of a bill that we worked on, Cash worked on earlier in the year. That's AB 1783 Dodd. It's a seismic safety bill, but it's not a structural bill. It has to do with the classroom content. This was introduced by Assemblyman Dodd, who is from the Napa Valley area. If you remember, earlier last year there was an earthquake there. Their buildings did very well overall, but they had, by their own account, some issues inside with file cabinets, light ballasts, and so on. And so the senator from the area introduced the bill. Basically what it does, particularly as introduced, it would require a plan to inspect the school safety contents or school contents for earthquake safety, and to utilize I'm going to read this here, the Guide and Checklist for Non-Structural Earthquake Hazards in California Schools document. That was developed jointly by DSA, the Office of Emergency Services, I believe also the Department of Education. Currently, a lot of districts use it now, but it's voluntary. It's a voluntary document. This bill would make it mandatory. Part of the bill also is to present the results of your inspections to the school board. Obviously, Cash was concerned not with the actual purpose of the bill itself, but with some of these issues that may be difficult for school districts. In other words, and you know these things, the increased complication and the potential costs. And so we went to work with the author on some of these issues. So now amendments were taken. It will have a single assessment rather than an initial and an annual, which really cuts down on what will need to be done there. Also, it adds a year longer to conduct the assessments, and so it's around 2020 or 2020, and so that kind of syncs up with the LCAP or full LCAP implementation, and so that's the thinking there. Also, not all schools are to the same level of earthquake or size. So we're in an earthquake zone. It also includes some ways to do some risk management there. In other words, if you're right on top of the San Andreas Fault, you're probably going to have to correct those a little quicker. But folks that are not, there will be some consideration on that issue to give them more time and space, basically. And the other piece in the amendments that were very important is to eliminate the reporting of corrective actions to outside agencies. As introduced, it would have required that, and that would be a nightmare, basically. So anyway, Cash, because of these amendments, is neutral on the bill. But we're going to continue to work with the author to see how it actually shakes out. Just for reference, currently, and we've talked to a lot of facilities and M&O folks. A lot of folks do this inspection through their facilities inspection tool, the good repair process. Some do it through their school safety plans, their 5-year deferred maintenance plans, and quite a few do it working with their insurance agencies. So that's kind of where we are now. I think the reality is a lot of folks do this already, but as usual with legislation, there was a few folks who didn't, and so we are going to have some more statewide standards. We think they're more reasonable, and certainly going forward, Cash will do some training on this to highlight the significance, particularly when the bill passes. Quickly, the other bill I wanted to talk about is SB 1170 by Wachowski, and that has to do with stormwater. Right now, most schools contract with their GC to do the stormwater pollution prevention plan. This bill would prohibit that, and so it throws the liability back onto school districts and the design community. So Cash has a full opposed position on this bill for obvious reasons. We are also part of a joint opposition effort with the Public Works Coalition, and so a lot of the other districts and Public Works folks are against the bill. So,
what was the impetus behind that? Who's the sponsor?
The Associated General Contractors. That's all. With that, yes. That's the yeah. We were a little surprised at that one too. Generally, we are for the stormwater bills if they give more funding or make some improvements. This one did not, and it's a little strange. So we'll see what happens with that one, particularly in the Appropriations Committee. We'll see what goes on. It passed pretty easily in the Policy Committee. Two more issues, not bills. The water bond, as you know, was passed a couple of years, but part of what they were doing there is developing some of these programs. It's taken a little bit of time to do that. One of the issues was for stormwater, and it's $186 million. The water board is still putting that together. It's going to require a variety of things, but one of the things I wanted to point out is the water board is doing a workshop, a free workshop on schoolyards for stormwater management, and so it's looking at some kind of these drops type programs, but also how you can use some of this not only to green your school and for drought purposes, but also how to manage your stormwater. That will be held in Sacramento on May 18th at the Cal EPA building. It will also be available by webcast, and so I'm going to encourage. I'll get that out on the website tomorrow, but also we're going to make a major push to see it's free, and it's something that districts should really take a look at going forward. They'll also get into some of the things that you're going to need to do to be able to get at that $186 million. It's not going to just be, as you might imagine, there's going to be some hoops, and so they'll get into some of that. Just quickly, the two speakers are with Sharon Danks, and she's the CEO of Green Schoolyards of America, kind of a subject matter expert in the area, and then a name that is well known to all of you, Jeff Vincent from the Center for Cities and Schools. So we're going to have some top folks there, and there'll be all the summary and all more information on the CASH website tomorrow. Finally, just wanted a little quick update. As some of you know, many of you know, the Cash Maintenance Network did something called the Facilities Inspection Tool Guidebook when Williams first came out. It's been very well used. It's still available electronically on our website. But long story short, we are not in a Williams world anymore. We are in an LCAP world now. And so what we're going to do under the leadership of Joe Dixon with the Cash Maintenance Network is to revise this document, basically a 2.0 version, to reflect some of the things that are more pertinent in about the good repair standard, about inspections, all those types of things that moved from the Williams lawsuit over to the LCAP. And so we think it's going to be a very useful document. The fit itself has not changed, and so we know that. But this is as much as anything to give more resources, more guidance. If you've ever looked at that book, there's a piece in there that says beyond the fit, what you're going to do beyond the fit. Well, in 10 years, there's a lot of stuff that we need to add there. Some of the things I've talked about today, some of these environmental things, PCBs, all kinds of things probably will need to be added to that. So we're looking at to the fall, maybe this winter to do it. Probably take us 4 or 5 months. We're putting the folks that we're going to do the committee together, and we're excited about doing it. It should be a very useful document going forward, not only for M&O folks, but also for facilities folks. So we're excited about doing that. That's the Maintenance Network's big, in addition to our workshops and other activity advocacy, that's our big project for this year. So thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let me get this. Whoops. Actually, all I get is that, huh, Jenny? I can do it.
You're not in charge.
Yeah, exactly. Good afternoon again. Don Ulrich. I'm from Clovis Unified Schools in Central California. I'm your CASH Vice Chair. I'm going to give a little update on the annual conference. The mode we're in right now really is still reflecting a little bit on the conference that we had in February, and a lot of data from that. I've asked the Strand co-chairs to review that one more time. So when we meet next on May 27th, we'll review that, make sure we have our direction as a group on what worked, maybe what needs improvement, and make sure we incorporate those in the conference for all our constituents. We're filling out all the co-strand chairs right now, so if you know anybody that's interested or you're interested, please contact Lisa Church. We need more, and more the merrier. More people getting involved, the better the conference will be. Want to announce too, I don't know if everybody knows this, that LPA Architecture is going to lead our next gen experience. We've want to try rotating that between architects every year. Architectural firms get more involved. With one being involved every year, though, we'll make sure that we have some continuity. I think that'll be my job and the CASH Board of Directors, along with the CASH staff, to make sure we have some continuity. But I'd like to get a lot of our great architecture firms across the state involved in that next gen experience and their work on making facilities that enhance and affect student learning. There's the big key there. And of course the conference, how exciting is it going to be, in February of 2017 when we pass this bond measure? I just wanted to commend the CASH Board of Directors, but mainly the CASH staff, our direction to them. They do the work, and under Jenny's leadership, what we've seen happen here, at least from my perspective in the last 8 months, has been just lockstep. The endorsements that are being generated, of the right people, the right organizations. CASBO was the latest one. I just have great confidence in that team and what's been accomplished, that we're going to get this thing passed. So kudos to the CASH team, Board of Directors under Jenny's leadership. We're going to get this thing done. And the excitement for me will be, now let's get the money out in February, right, of 17. And that's going to take some work too. That's the next step. That's going to take a lot of subtle work with the politicians and officials, but we can do it. And we're going to need to focus on that once we get this thing passed. And that will be the excitement that this conference will generate. So hopefully we have lots of people knowing that there's gas in the tank, and we can really work on now how we're going to get it out as quickly as we can to school districts, because that's where it's needed ultimately. Any questions about the conference?
The date,
The date,
well, not the date, but the next meeting, I think, is
May 27th.
25. Friday, so. That's a Friday. You're going to be by
I
yourself?
wrote it down wrong. Yeah, I don't want to show up Friday. Thank you for correcting that. I'll say it again. May 25th,
Cash day.
Wednesday, Cash Day, right here. Okay. All right, it's my pleasure to introduce Anna Ferrara. She's going to give you an update on the energy work that she does and the water update. Thanks.
Here's my phone.
Okay. That's me, I get one too. So, hello in TV land, because I was at my office and was streaming live, so that was exciting to see. So, good afternoon already. I am pleased to share recent developments on energy, mainly bills, but the budget process is still moving forward, as I'm sure you've heard today. Very busy time in the Capitol, budget moving at the same time that all of these bills are. So we're trying to hold on to that school's focus for Prop 39. Haven't heard any concerns of late, and the amount is currently set for $365 million for the ADA pieces of the K-12. And so they are putting that item on hold. They continue to put it on hold in anticipation of May revision. And changes to the numbers that may come there. So they haven't voted on it yet, but that doesn't cause too much of an alarm right now. They're waiting for the new numbers to come out. So bills, I have a couple of bills to tell you about, and the most exciting one is from Senator Wesso, who is the chair of the Energy, Utilities, and Communications Committee on the Senate side. He has introduced a bill to provide for a school energy electricity rate. Yes, you heard it here. So very exciting. They are going to be looking at a just and reasonable rate for schools based on the cost of service, because that is what is in code language. You're supposed to be charging a just and reasonable rate. Of course, in San Diego, they have not been seeing that, with double-digit increases in their electricity rates, which is causing them to make decisions about what to do with their general fund money. They are successfully talking with legislative folks over there, but we also made the point that as SDG&E goes, so could PG&E and Edison, and we are very concerned about that given the investments that we're making under Prop 39 And so this is a very exciting development, and we look forward to talking. We have already done that in policy committee. It's out, and it's now moving to appropriations. Of course, that is the senators' chaired policy committee, so we'll see how it does in approps. We are making the argument that, just and reasonable cost of service, our energy load profile is unique, and so therefore we may deserve a special look.
Do you have a bill number?
1041, I'm sorry, SB. Was that your question, Richard? Okay. And then, so after that exciting news, we had a couple more bills go through. ECA extension. ECA is the low, no interest loans that the CEC used to do. No money in it, but it needed to be extended, and so the placeholder is there for funding. That is SB 1207 WESO as well. So we have a friend in the Senate. That will be heard on May 2nd in Senate Appropriations. It got through Policy Committee, no problem. We testified that it was well used by schools, and we hope to see it get some funding in the future. Also on May 2nd in Approps is SB 919 Hertzberg. This develops a special time of use energy rate for entities that augment local water supply. So you see that energy water nexus going on. So if you're doing, desal, recycling, brackish desalination, those types of things, they're looking at providing a special time of use rate for that purpose. Finally, SB 2339 is a net energy metering bill, which would extend the rules for reaching the cap for net energy metering. So now all the customers are getting solar, and we like solar because we're getting that credit for producing more than we use at any given time. So what's happening with the public utilities is they're reaching the cap earlier than the investor-owned utilities are. So they wanted to apply the same rules to munis. Of course, munis fought back vehemently against that. But we were part of a group led by the solar industry to talk about how schools use NEM, and we'd like to be able to continue to do that. They amended the bill to make it so that not all public utilities, but those that have more than 25,000 service connections would be under new rules. So that went out of approps after a very contentious hearing, and is now heading to Assembly approps. Two bills got pulled that I told you about before. One is a school energy efficiency pilot that was focused on San Jose, then broadened to statewide, now pulled by Nora Campos. That was AB 1973. We'll see what they do with that in the future, but for now it's on hold. And then water conserving plumbing fixtures, SB 1173 by Hertzberg, that was going to look at providing another funding source for schools who wanted to do some of this, but it also included mandatory changing out of those appliances for commercial folks. They didn't like that, so it's pulled for now. We've written letters in support of the bills I told you about earlier. It's on our website, schoolenergysolutions.com, if you want to use it to write your own from your own district. We'll be discussing these bills with legislative staff who have agreed to come to our SEC forums. The next one is in San Diego, May 5th, and then May 10th nearby in Yolo County COE. We encourage you to join us, and there's forms in the back if you want to register. What else? There's 2 SEC nominations for our executive committee. If you are already a member and want to become leadership, we'll be looking at that in June. And then we'll also have some water issues that we're taking a look at. Water board and water districts will be in attendance to talk about ongoing conservation mandates that the state is imposing. Any questions about what I've said so far? Okay, well actually, what I've said, period, so. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Anna. Good work as usual from Anna and SEC. I would like to welcome up Dave Walrath to give us an update on Californians for School Facilities. What do you got to tell us?
Thank you, Jenny. First, the Qualified Zone Academy bond allocations have been announced. Department of Education, CDE, is responsible for this. We have close to $100 million in these authorizations. It's the largest authorization California has ever had. It's a 2-year authorization for 2015, 2016, so we'll have to go back in 2017 to start looking at how we fund qualified zone academy bonds, qualified school construction bonds, Build America bonds, all the different types of funding sources that were available from the federal government to assist state and local school districts in their provision of services. I say state school districts, Hawaii, the only one. We'll be going back June 1st through 3rd. There's information on the back table. Looks like this. To do lobbying. The lobbying will be all day on the 2nd and most of the day on the 3rd. We usually see legislative offices, agencies, sometimes U.S. Treasury, sometimes White House committees. We're always trying to expand our reach. We're very excited this year. One of the reasons is that one of the presidential candidates has specifically talked about funding for school facilities. For those of you who remember the emergency repair grants and those things, talking about doing this again. I expect that person will probably be a nominee of a major party. We don't know how it will finally play out, but school facilities, at least in one party, is beginning to be talked about as part of infrastructure instead of being ignored as infrastructure. Along with streets, roads, bridges, they include schools. Very positive situation. How the other major party candidate will do, or how the third party candidate will do, or the fourth party candidate, we're not sure right now. Stay tuned. We'll see more after July. But it's important to go back on the 1st through the 3rd because we're laying the groundwork for the continuation and expansion of the federal role in school infrastructure. So we're looking for people to attend. There's information back there. Josh, is there anything you want to say? You're my chair. Josh.
I think you actually covered it pretty good.
Great.
I wasn't sure if you were going to put me on the spot there.
Oh, no.
I think you handled it well. Thank you.
Thank you. And we look forward to seeing you back in D.C. June 1st through 3rd. It has not become humid then. It's still very, very nice weather.
Thank you, Dave. Oh, and Dave did not mention, there's a federal Senate energy bill that's getting a lot of play right now. They're hoping to get it before the president by August, but there's a lot of work to be done. That includes some really interesting things for schools. So we're, or just generally energy infrastructure. So we're looking forward to that. But I did forget to tell you about the intervenor compensation bill that is AB 2120 Weber. Again, another member from San Diego. But they are looking at a bill, SEC ran this bill 3 years ago, allowing schools to apply for intervenor compensation when they formally participate in rate proceedings before the CPUC. Those things can be very costly, and so schools can't really afford to go before the PUC and formally give them input on how it impacts schools. This would allow, especially in rate proceedings and the investments that we're making, schools to go ahead and do that and perhaps get reimbursed for their time and trouble. So that is 2120 Weber. Thanks.
Thanks, Donna. All right, I know we're running a little bit late. Just quickly, this is your opportunity if there are job exchange or people choice information out there to stand up and raise your hand. Kathy.
So Sac City Unified is looking for the title called Facilities Program Specialist, kind of a funky title, but basically it's a project manager. So it's posted on the CAPS website, also at Join, and also on our district website.
Okay, so Sac City Unified Facility Program Specialist on the CAFSH website, EdJoin, and what else?
Our website.
Their Sac City's website. Any others? Great. I'm sure there'll be more as we pass the bond and get all these projects going. Final note, mark your calendar for our next cash day. That will be May 25th, where we will be talking about annual conference afterward. But thank you everyone for attending, and look forward to seeing you next month.